I'm Lipp. I'm the executive director and founder of Open Doors organization. We're based in Chicago, Illinois. And our mission is to make goods and services accessible to people with disabilities in travel, tourism, and transportation. Let's see if we're here. So there's a lot of obstacles and things that are ahead in the future of travel, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. Let me first explain Open Doors. We're a nonprofit. We're actually here with the other group across the way with IATA because we work in accessible aviation. We represent about 40 to 50 foreign carriers, and we do all of their training in PRMs and people of determination. We also, in Chicago, we operate something called Open Taxis. We operate and dispatch 430 wheelchair accessible taxis in Chicago, and we have created something very unique with that. We have on-demand transportation for people with disabilities. On demand, like 15 minutes or less. You get off the airplane in Chicago, you go to baggage claim, you get in the cab line with everybody else, and you get an accessible cab when everybody else gets their cab. No, not any quicker, not any less, but we're right in with everybody. So we try to take it off of equality and look at things more equitable. We believe that's what the future looks like. So that we move past equality, we move into the equitable thing. But there's a lot of obstacles ahead in travel and in tourism, and I think one of the major obstacles that we're going to find is money. And how much money is going to be put into the system to create services for people with disabilities. I think I heard somebody up here earlier saying, I've never seen the same hotel room and you never know what it looks like, and it's the truth. You call a hotel, you have to literally ask them to physically go look in the room to let you know if the bed is on a frame or not, or how tall it is. Otherwise, that information is not readily available to anybody. So I always recommend that you call the hotel ahead of time and physically have them walk up there and ask and look at it, send you pictures if possible. The future is having that information online. At Open Doors, we released something with the city of Chicago called Easy Access Chicago. It is an access guide that is online now for people with disabilities to find out information about access in Chicago area. One of the important things that we did in this is when you go to a specific hotel, say you want to stay at the Radisson Blu in downtown Chicago, we actually went into a couple of their rooms and give you spec by spec inside the room. So that gives you the knowledge to then call the hotel and say, hey, I want room 542. Because you know more about it than they are likely to know about it because of the information we give. We don't rank anybody and we don't point fingers. We only report on what you do have, not on what you do not have. And we made it all searchable for people so you can go through a searchable database. I think these access guides and things like that will help break down some of these obstacles, and the biggest obstacles are communication. And there's challenges behind communication. One of them is just how do we communicate with each other? Are we doing it via the web, via our smartphones, or people with disabilities a lot of times are lower income, and do we have a smartphone? Do we need to make everything available on the computer, or do we still need to have it available in multiple formats? And that's what the future holds, I think, is that really in travel and tourism, we're going to have it in multiple formats so that everybody gets a chance to have access to the information, so that we're inclusive for everybody. There's a lot of places to cross too. We have to jump across though, and we can't get caught falling in the water. But we have to make this big leap, and we really have to get over it and decide this is what we're going to do, just like we're doing here in Dubai right now today. We have this first summit in the area, and there's tons of amazing things going on. This is the way you jump over that and get across that bridge. Things like this and things like we had at IATA, where you put people in the room and they talk to each other. You learn to communicate, you learn what others need. It doesn't mean that you share your competitive advantages with one another, but you talk openly and freely about a topic that people are afraid to talk about. And you have to overcome that fear of getting it out on the table, that access is an issue, or that there's things that you want to do at your property or facility or amusement park that deal with access. All right, so it's got to be everywhere too. It's got to be a global movement with this UN CRPD, the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, was passed and ratified by all these countries it opened up the world to people with disabilities. And it's our job to take that, now that the doors are open for us, and travel as much as we can. Open Doors will be hosting in 2021 an event called Destinations for All. It was last year, I believe it was last year, it was in Belgium, and it was such a fantastic event. We saw people from all over the world, from Australia to the Middle East, things that are going on in Jordan and here in Dubai, and we saw everybody, and these are some of the groups that are all over the world now working on accessible travel and tourism, and can you believe it? There's that many. I know when I started 20 years ago, and I did it wasn't Google at the time, whatever search it was called, and I could never find anything like that. So there's plenty to do in the movement all over the world. If you look at those names, those are all places that are all over the world, representing everywhere from the United States to Europe, all the way to the Middle East, and this is what's going on. And they talked about the Lonely Planet just a minute ago, and Tarita, they're doing some great things there. But there is a big movement, and there are a lot of people who are starting to say, let's make this happen, and a lot of it's because of the CRPD. Here's where I really think the future is, though. I think it's in the technology. And I know technology gets expensive, but as we get it more and more, it will commoditize itself, and the prices will come down. But this is all proof. These are studies. Open Doors conducted studies in 2002, 2005, and 2015 to actually quantify how much people with disabilities spend when they travel. But one of the things that really was amazing was how much we use the internet to book hotels, how much we're actually doing. We're doing more than the general population. How important the internet is to us. Basically, what our study showed was, if you aren't making your website accessible and you're not putting information about accessibility on your website, then you're behind. You need to be right there with it. We're using the internet in droves, and we'll probably use it more because it's a kind of an open door for freedom. But this statistic was very interesting, that 62% use the internet to book their trips. That means we're booking on the internet higher than the general population. So if you want our business, bring it on the web. And here's another great suggestion. If you have a website, or if you work with a government or a local thing, put a symbol on the front page so we don't have to dig around to find the information. If you put one of those wheelchair symbols on it, or the multiple disability symbols, we will flock to there and we will click right on there, and you don't have to put it in English, French, Arabic, just put the symbols, because we all identify with the symbols all over the world. And we'll click right on it, and we'll be attracted to that, and then we don't have to file through your websites to find the information that we need. The information has to be readily available, it has to be easily available, and as you can see, we also are making phone calls. And we make those phone calls because if we don't do that and something happens, sometimes the consequences of our actions are pretty severe for our lives. Some of us have health issues. So planning ahead is one of the major things that we need to use, and talking and making phone calls is still in the cards for people with disabilities. Here's another one. Look at the information sources used. The internet, previous experience. How about the previous experience? That's the word of mouth network, right? We have a huge word of mouth network. Somebody asked me in this other event about reaching out. How do we pinpoint and market towards people with disabilities? And I said, you know, if I knew that, I'd be rich. And they looked at me like, people don't market to people with disabilities? I'm like, no, they don't necessarily market to us. And we are one of the very toughest minorities to market to. Why? We cover every basis of life. It doesn't matter who you are, what you believe in, you can join our club any minute of every day. So to pinpoint us, because we have no certain age, we don't have any certain anything. There's no certain characteristic amongst us all other than we have very unique disabilities amongst each one of us. And so when you take into consideration all of that, then you have to consider everybody's individual needs. And word of mouth is such a big part of our lives because they're hard for us to communicate outside of anything, that if you push into that word of mouth, then you'll be much better off. Reach out to disability organizations in your local communities, bring them in, ask them their opinion. They're here for you. And you know what? It kind of is scary, I understand that. But you have to overcome that fear to be successful. If you don't overcome that fear of disability, and we all get a little nervous around it, right? Because it could be us one day, but you got to overcome that now to make forward progress. Among these others I wanted to bring up is to show you that actually these are stats for United States, but if you look, traveling to the Middle East, 19%, that means we have a lot of room to increase travel and tourism from the United States to the Middle East, as well as people were asking why the Caribbean ranks so high. And well, the Caribbean has great weather, and right, why shouldn't it rank high? It's the Caribbean. But it ranked high also because we believe people from the United States, it's a shorter trip to travel to the Caribbean than it would be to come someplace like this. So we think the Caribbean ranked high also because of weather and everything. And you can also see our medium spending. So we do spend money. And our study also showed that we spend about $6 billion a year flying. And that is flying once. And I didn't count the other people who are flying with me. So add another person, that's another 6 billion. Add another one, 6 billion. Flying once a year. How easy would it be for aviation to get us to fly just once more and we double that revenue? That's billions of dollars, because that's how powerful we are as a market. We are the hidden market for everything. Here's some pictures of our cabs in Chicago. This has a purpose-built vehicle called an MV1. I don't know if you've seen them, but it's one of the only purpose-built vehicles in the world. And really, in Chicago, we're open for travel and tourism, as we are all over the United States. And I know that through Destinations for All, events like these, we're going to get out of the house more often. And that's why you can't give up on this, because it's so important to us to hold events like this, because I promise you all that something good came out of this event for all of us. I can promise you that having this first time opened up so many people's minds, their ears, their hearts, that you will see a difference. And then next year you'll see a difference because everybody's done it once before, and then it just grows, and the whole movement will grow. And you have great support from your government and the people here, so I think it's amazing what's going on here. I think it's amazing all the other things I've seen going on across the world. I want to thank you all for coming, and hopefully that we'll see you again here next year, right? Thank you. Any questions?